just wanted to share a couple of things and show you a couple of things. The first is this camera, and this is the camera that took all these images. And there's a bit of a story behind that, which we'll talk you through in a minute. And also this book here, which is the notebook that was used to record all the notes you see, and that's where the title of the talk comes from. So do that. You should see the first slide.
Yeah, indeed we do.
Yeah, brilliant. So just a brief introduction. I've got a reasonable amount of stuff to cover, so I don't want to spend too much time introducing myself. But I'm a landscape and wildlife photographer, and the reason why I've recently joined the travel group was because my youngest son has been posted to Myanmar, and we plan to do some traveling. So I wanted to get some tips as to how to improve my travel photography, which has been very helpful over the last year and a half. So thank you to that, all those members of the travel team that don't know me. For those people that are local camera club members, I know there's a few of you on here. So welcome to you too. This is a regular travel group share and chat where we do exactly what we're doing. We share things and we chat. Okay, so if we move on to what background to this, what you will see are pictures taken by my parents-in-law on a 6-month journey back from Montreal in 1963. As I mentioned, taken with this Agfa Garrett 36 camera, which my father-in-law had never used before the trip. He acquired it in exchange for a sewing machine, and he'd never taken a picture or had one developed before he went on the trip. And it was only when they got to California that they actually managed to make sure that things were working properly. I scanned the slides about 3 years ago, and my father-in-law started becoming unwell, and he subsequently passed away. But this is one of his life's works and his passion. So that's why I put this together. Pat kept a travel diary, and the comments you'll see are from that, and the detail on the slides are the titles that Bob gave to each slide. And I have done some processing, but basic processing, spot removal, and some probably inexpert color management in Lightroom. This is, one of my favorite pictures, probably not a stunning photograph, but I think it tells the story of what we will be doing for the next hour or so. So this is a Lightroom map of the journey. Started off in Montreal here, took the bus across Canada, and then across the border into Seattle, and then down through Salt Lake City, where they stayed with a friend. We don't have any images from there, mostly family images. Then to the Grand Canyon, Nevada, down to Los Angeles, to California, flight to Hawaii. That was Pat's first ever flight. And then from Hawaii to Japan, then on to Formosa or Taiwan, as it is now, on to Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, and then the last flight was to Sri Lanka, or Ceylon as it was, boat to India, and then probably the most interesting bit of the trip, a bus ride predominantly across the Middle and Far East, back to Europe. So that's the journey. We start off in Canada, and what we have here, left Montreal at 8:30, arrived at Niagara Falls at 7:30. This is the first entry in the diary, probably a little bit late for photography. So we don't have any pictures of Niagara Falls, but I think we've got quite an interesting description of the falls, not as high as expected, and crowds of people like Blackpool, which probably a dated comment as well. But then, really, the first set of photographs are from the Rockies, and one of the things that strikes me about the images are very much the commentary, very much ties up with the images, and this is one of those pictures. The commentary, pleasantly commercial resort town surrounded by mountains, and I think that's pretty much what we have in the picture. And if you think about it, obviously the diary was written immediately at the time, but the slides weren't processed or seen until quite a lot later. So it's not surprising the comments the same, but also quite interesting. And then on into to Lake Louise, large and lavish hotel with a wonderful view of the mountains and lakes, and that's exactly what we have. I suspect there weren't many 10-story hotels in the 60s, and that is a pretty stunning view out the window. The quality's not as good as some of the other slides. I suspect that was because it was taken out of the window, but it is quite a stunning view. And then in the afternoon of that day, Bob and Pat had quite an extensive walk up in the mountains. Bob was a pretty accomplished middle distance runner at that time, and both had the benefit of youth. I think both were 24 at the time they left. Bob had his 25th birthday on the journey. So that's some pretty stunning pictures of the Rockies and six glaciers. Then on to Seattle, and left Vancouver in the bus, and it was the World Trade Fair in Seattle the year before. I think there were 10 million visitors, and the needle that you see here was one of the key attractions, with surrounding views of Mount Rainier and the surrounding area. I suspect this view of Seattle, it definitely does not look like that anymore. It is one of the slides that I quite like in terms of having a nice color palette. So on to more rugged and starker country, traveling south, and the next real spot of that they spent a reasonable amount of time was around Grand Canyon. They visited the Hoover Dam, stayed at Falstaff, and then went to the Grand Canyon, and progressed a little bit further into the valley than I know Anna and I did when we visited 10 years ago, and they went down into the plateau. But these are probably your pretty standard pictures of the Grand Canyon. I know I've got the one on the left and the one on the bottom right, but not the mule train in the plateau. And I think these couple of slides are a little bit more interesting, taken on plateau points, looking down into the Colorado River, or looking across the plateau, and you definitely get the idea of mountains rather than looking down into a canyon. So slightly different view. Yes, an hour and a half to go down and 2 and 3/4 hours to go back, which I suspect was pretty hard and hot work. So on from the Grand Canyon, moved on to Las Vegas, and as you can see here, a pretty short stay in Las Vegas, probably a little bit shorter than when we stayed there, but we similarly weren't too interested in staying too long in Las Vegas. Bob gambled 5 cents in the casino, but in at 5 a.m. and left at 8:30, and definitely the strip does not look anything like this now. A very different place 60 years ago than it is today. But still neon and still attracting punters to the casinos. So from Las Vegas, they moved on from Las Vegas. They went further south and down into LA and did the normal things in LA, but ended up in San Francisco, where what you have here are some pictures from the Berkeley campus. I spent a couple of years living in San Francisco relatively recently, and I can assure you that the stadium is very much like this. Total capacity of about 60,000, which they do get for some of their college games. So definitely an institution, college football in the States. And the California Golden Bears, they still use the same Cal logo as you see there. So there were lots of other pictures of the band playing and the crowd enjoying the game. On the bottom right, you have Freshers Bazaar at the university. Bob and Pat's had friends in there who they stayed with, and it was there they managed to borrow a slide projector and get the slides developed that they'd taken so far, and that was the first time that they saw any of the slides, and with a fair amount of relief that things had actually worked pretty well for someone that hadn't used the camera before. This is more of a downtown San Francisco picture, a part that I know well. This is 2 stations down from where I got on to go to work every morning when I was there. And it's the turnaround platform for the cable car that goes up for a couple of blocks to Union Square on the right, and the building on the corner there. That's a Gap store now, or it was when I was there 10 years or so ago. But I think gives both the Berkeley pictures and the San Francisco pictures do give you a bit of a feel for a football game and the city 60 years ago. So moving on, and as I say, they flew from San Francisco to Hawaii, and was their first flight, and I think the description of tremendous, I think, does sum things up. And they took the taxi to Waikiki Beach, which I suspect looks a little bit busier than this and a bit more developed now than it did then. And as you can see from the comment, they had booked the flights and the travel themselves, and they were traveling together. And it was a question of finding somewhere to stay wherever they arrived. And one of the first comments in most destinations is, found accommodation here, or this is how much it cost in rupees or dollars. But very much not something that you would do today in terms of probably waiting till you get places to book your accommodation. They obviously enjoyed the beach. Warmest sea water I've ever bathed in. Delightful. So obviously a nice beach then. And one of the things that they did do was take a bus trip around Oahu Island. They were very taken with the pineapple plantation that they visited, and there's some nice pictures of that. But this is probably the one that I chose there. This is Bob. As you can see, perfect build for a middle distance runner, and this is pretty much the only photograph of him throughout the journey. One of those classic things that it is worth remembering that there are other people in the party, and when you go away, and to make sure you get the photographer gets his picture taken as well. From there, off once again on a pretty long flight to Japan. Stopped, not sure halfway, a little bit over halfway for refueling. I'm not sure that I'm really familiar with Wake Island, but quite interesting comment there in the book, underlined across the international date line. And then we have this view that you'd love to have of just to be lined up with Mount Fuji over the wing of the plane. And looking at some of the commentary, there are certain aspects of visiting Japan that haven't changed. Celebrated Bob's birthday with lunch, something slightly different from back home, sushi and beer. So food is very much a part of the visit, and also people very helpful. Quite a lot of people wearing kimonos, probably less so now, and happy, carefree-looking people, which is what we want. They did a lot of the tourist things in Tokyo. The improved the neon lights, went up the tower, went to Ueno Park. Obviously, some kimono-clad locals there, and visited the Asagasi temple. I think there's a bit of a description of general impression of Tokyo, large and sprawling, not beautiful, white modern place, more like London than any city visited since left London. The streets very alive, crowds of people, shops open, neon lights everywhere. One of the other things that they did in Tokyo was visited the stadiums that were being prepared for the 1964 Olympics. I think I'm right in believing that Bob was actually invited before he went to Canada to train with the GB athletics team for the Tokyo Olympics. So of particular interest to him, but he did go to Canada rather than train with them. And final comment on Tokyo, the journey to the airport, slow and long. Traffic in Tokyo, fantastically congested. And that's definitely something that hasn't changed. However, one thing that I think did strike them was, and one of the trips they did from Tokyo was to Nikko. A kind gentleman helped them rebook on the express train when he realized that they were on the slow train. So, that's classic Japanese help. Only 3 words of English, but managed to do that. Lots of interaction on the train with young men, shook our hands and took photos of his friends standing behind us. Remember, this is quite soon after the war, and quite interesting, to see that sort of behavior and welcome. Stayed in a Japanese-styled inn in Nikko, shoes taken off at entrance, 12-inch high table, green tea on arrival, kimonos for dinner, collection of small dishes, three mattresses of different thickness on the floor. I think we've all stayed at a local hotel, Japanese inn, and that description pretty much matches. But what doesn't match in Nikko, I'm sure some people have been there. Small hilly resort town, one main street lined with little open fronted souvenir shops. I think it's probably a bit bigger than that and actually full of tourists now. But one thing that did strike them was the Kegon Falls at Shuzenji up in the mountains above Nikko. A beautiful spot in the mountains, 4,000 feet up, Mount Nanai rising behind the lake. The Kegon waterfall, as impressive as Niagara, but in more beautiful surroundings. As you can see, the autumn color, obviously.
Sorry to interrupt, Bob. We're stuck on basically Tokyo Illuminations.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Uh, yes, I was showing the waterfall on the left there.
Okay. Sorry.
And then yeah, that's the shrine at Nikko. And one other comment in terms of Nikko, saw very few other Europeans and Americans around Nikko and enjoyed traveling around under our own steam instead of the tourist group. I think they did a pretty good job of engaging on their travels. So from Japan to Formosa or Taiwan as we know it now. And the town was busy, people everywhere. Picture of Taipei, probably not what we'd call level busy at the moment, but you can definitely see pedestrians and bicycles and pedicabs and cars. Struck by the number of soldier and army trucks around in Taipei, and the picture of Chiang Kai-shek's offices in Taipei. And they obviously had a fair amount of military presence when they were there. They travelled down the west coast to Taichung, but probably the one thing of note here, uh, Typhoon Gloria was in June, so a few months before they visited a Force 4 typhoon. There were quite a few deaths, and as you can see, some fairly substantial damage following on from a pretty large hurricanes and typhoons in 61 and 62, and 64 was pretty shocking and the worst year on record for typhoons in that region. They also visited Sun Moon Lake, which is 45 miles inland. Unfortunately, no pictures of that, but the only thing was worth noting from the diary, it was a fairly hair-raising journey. The bus was pretty much the only thing on the roads, and they weren't too bothered about anybody in the villages that they sped through, which was quite, I think, scary for partners. They had a front row seat for that journey. So on to Hong Kong. I think you probably recognize some of this, but it is totally different from what you see now. And definitely the trip that they talk about here took the peak tram to the top of the peak behind the business district, walked down the other side, and then along the road to Aberdeen. That's incredibly built up, and that's not something you would even vaguely think about doing now. As you can see, the view here from the peak going west, absolutely totally different. And then Aberdeen Village here, once again, that's incredibly built up. So a very different General impression of Hong Kong, much more familiar to us than Japan or Taiwan, not so foreign, far more commercialized, a cosmopolitan city. They enjoyed some Russian and Italian cuisine while they were there, as well as the Chinese cuisine. And by this stage, they were getting quite proficient at using chopsticks. Unfortunately, although not obvious from this picture of Pat on at the ferry, the stomachache attack, and I think she was pretty sick during the night in Hong Kong. But that is a theme that does recur later on the trip. So from there on to Bangkok, which describes as very hot and humid. And I think they did quite a lot of what you would, the normal touristy trips in Bangkok. It's not somewhere that I've been, so I'm not familiar. I went down to the river, went to Wat Po. I'm not sure the reclining Buddha was a complete hit, but it was amazing for its enormity. They visited, coincided with the Queen of the Netherlands royal visit, as you can see in the next slide. And Prince B helicopter was landing, and he does sound a little bit like the Prince motor racing playboy, but I don't know that for sure. But that was the description taken from Wikipedia. The Grand Palace on the left. And probably the next picture, one of my favorites of all the pictures. And I think you get a good idea of the sense of place and the gentleman walking, the composition, looking straight down to the street with the cars and lots going on. One of the I think better image in terms of capturing the sense of place. So from Bangkok on to Singapore, and quite interesting. The description of Singapore, and Kath, I'm sure you probably have some views on this, having stayed at in Bangkok. I always find Singapore a lot more humid and a lot more oppressive than Bangkok when I've travelled. But they described it as warm but much fresher than Bangkok. But my view would probably be opposite of that. But I've only really travelled for business, so
I think
I can't really tell.
I think it's the openness of the streets and the fact that it's far more like a European or American city than it is an Asian city.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. And on cue we get an open cathedral, St Andrew's Cathedral, and a cricket ground, but I think it's actually rugby post there, so I don't know if there's a cricket ground there as well. But going back to the previous slide, I thought this is quite interesting. The banners here celebrating the formation of Malaysia, which was signed pretty much immediately before they arrived, which combined Malaya with Singapore, Sarawak, and North Borneo. Unfortunately, Singapore didn't hang around long, so but they separated in '65. But I think the detail of the flags and the union, I think, is a nice picture. So, oh yes, the one thing that was quite interesting here, we're getting to the end of the bit that they organised themselves, and joining on to the tour that they had, and they had a bit of a problem with their tickets and BOAC, because they had a ticket in, and the ticket out was part of the tour into Colombo, which the BOAC officials weren't too happy with, and they had to go to the Ceylon Trade Commission and the British High Commission to sort things out, and 2 hours of time and much anger was the description of that episode. But no issues at the airport, and they flew by Comet to Ceylon, or Sri Lanka as we know it now. And one of the first things that they did at Colombo was went to collect their mail. They'd obviously been traveling for a fair amount of time at that stage, and they collected that via Penn Overland, who were the company that arranged this portion of the trip. I'm afraid these, for obvious reasons, these trips no longer happen. But I did look up Penn Overland on Wikipedia. They were a pioneering Hereford-based tour operator that ran iconic long-haul overland bus expeditions between Europe, Asia, and Africa from 1959 to the 80s. Part of the famous hippie trail, and one of the classic routes was Colombo to London. And this is them at the port, getting their baggages forwarded for the boat journey to India. And I think they were quite taken reading their description of Sri Lanka, quite different from where they'd been before. They talk about the first elephant, the 3-foot water lizard, the tea plantation, the tea factories, the cocoa trees, the coffee bushes, the pepper vines, and the coconut palms. So a different landscape, which they enjoyed, and one of the major trips they did there was the Singaria Rock, which the next few pictures are from, and the view from the top with the mountains in the distance, where you can see the extent of the site, some of the frescoes on the wall, and then how the rock stands above the plain, but definitely something that they enjoyed visiting. I'm not sure if it looks like this and whether anybody has been there. It's definitely on my list of places to go.
Yes, it does look like that. And you walk on the edge of it on a really shaky sort of bridge that juts out from the rock, and it's not fun, but it is amazing.
Okay, I shall bear that in mind. Maybe not Anna's favourite type of journey. So from there, crossed on the ferry, the Dhanishkodi, and took some time to get through Indian customs. So European problems not all gone away in terms of getting across customs. I missed the express train to Madras, but did get there in the end, and went to the cinema, a mixture of slapstick, musical, and war film, which is quite difficult to imagine, really. But and had a race back to the hotel at 1 o'clock in the morning 3 trisures. So a bit of time for fun, and some of the pictures from Madras. Here's the cinema, and I think you get a bit of an idea for the subject of the film there as well. And some of the, particularly these pictures, I did struggle quite a lot with trying to sort out some of the colours on some of the slides, and I haven't got them all right, but definitely something that tried to, it was the first time I'd done anything of this nature, so definitely learning on the job in trying to handle colour casts. This probably one of the other things when I tried to put this talk together was to get an idea for what traveling was like, and I think this probably sums up probably quite a varied collection of resting places. I stayed at the tourist bungalow in Jaipur, slept on the roof on camp beds, just a few rupees. A very attractive town, clean, spacious, red-coloured buildings, very oriental. There are quite a few references to sleeping conditions, so I thought I'd sort of put a few together here. Canada, slept the night on the bus. Tokyo, room soundproof, so had a great night's sleep. Lahore, stayed at the Park Luxury Hotel. Very pleasant, band playing, dancing after dinner. The Lak Pass in Pakistan, stayed at rest house, slept on the veranda, no toilet facilities. A little bit later on that part of the journey, stayed in a scruffy little hotel. Bob's sick, cold at night, no toilet facilities again. And back to civilization in Ankara, stayed at a quite pleasant hotel, hot shower in the room, exclamation mark. So definitely fairly varied. And some of the accommodation on this part of the trip also seemed to be very much booked as they were going along. From there, train to Agra, and as everybody that I know who's been there, I haven't been there. I think very much bewitched and found the Taj Mahal stunning. I suspect the only thing that's different here is there's a lot less people than you would find now, but they did enjoy it by moonlight and first thing in the morning, and that does tell in the pictures of the Taj Mahal. But I think we've probably seen some of those before, and then on from there, the snake charmers, the classic, the shot, and Delhi. They did quite like New Delhi, but weren't too convinced about Old Delhi. A real contrast with New Delhi, and then visited the Golden Temple of Amritsar on the way to the Pakistan border. So a quick flick through India, and then on to Pakistan. And I think particularly these and the Iranian pictures are some of the ones that I find more interesting. Spent the day at customs at the border. They met some buses coming the other way, and as we all do when we travel, we suddenly, in the middle of nowhere, come across someone that we know. And Christine was at university with Pat, and in the middle of nowhere, you come across friends that you know. And the picture on the right, taken at Sukhoi, if that's the right way of pronouncing that. But the commentary here is quite interested. Stop for lunch, bus surrounded by a crowd, followed everywhere in the market by a large crowd, caused quite a stir in the market. Crowds so big, police came in to break it up with canes and jeep with loudspeaker. Local press took photos. So I'm not sure that would happen these days. But I really like the picture of the old man, and it's very colourful. Top. Some more. There's some more people of pictures. These are pictures on the journey across Pakistan. Lots of ladies picking cotton. And then one of the details highlighted in the notes from the hall, the mud dwellings, which are captured there, and some of the crowds in the hall. From there, they went on to the Bolan Pass. It's a journey of about 800 miles, which they did in 3 days. Sort of 250, 300 miles in the bus seems to be a fairly full day on the roads they were traveling. Nowadays, it's about 13 and a quarter hours on Google Maps, that journey on pretty good roads. So they did cover a lot of miles in fairly difficult conditions. I think there's only a mention of one puncture in the books, which is pretty good going. Bottom right, the Bolan Pass. They stopped for some swimming and a picnic. Stopped with some Bedouin tribes that took them out on camel rides. The evening on the pass was very cold, and the first time they had to wear warm clothes for the first time for many months. And there we move on to Iran. And as I say, I think these are probably the most interesting pictures as far as I'm concerned. And the one on the right is a good, quite a impressive structure to direct camels across the desert. I think they find Iran very different from India and Pakistan. Small towns, clean, well laid out. And they did enjoy their travel there. As described here, stopped in a small village with a very pretty mosque with blue tiles, and that's I think a pretty stunning location. And there are one or two other pictures of this, but I think that's probably the best with the mountain in the background. Once again, another interesting slide, a canette, which is a underground aqueduct. Obviously saves water evaporating, and a vital part of water systems in the region, 3,000 years old. And definitely when I first looked, I didn't really work out what was going on, but the quantity of earth is because they're traveling the aqueducts, moving water quite significant different distances. But yeah, once again, I thought quite an interesting slide. And then on to across Iran and to some of the Kurdish areas. Interesting once again here, describing different looks, different dress, and I think they would definitely a part of the current geopolitics of the region. And then some pictures from the road to Isfahan, definitely trying to capture they're a bit similar to the Grand Canyon, different colours and textures in the terrain. Much more varied with mountains, hills, and small settlements, mountains and rocks coloured by minerals. Once again, a fair description of the pictures. So then we come to probably the more interesting and probably not surprising, given the politics we've had in the region, the difficult crossing across the Iran-Iraq border. While they were in Tehran, they had been given visas for Iraq, but they, even though despite that there had been a revolution immediately before their arrival. And actually, one detail was quite interesting. It's about 500 miles from Tehran to the border, quite a tricky road with many hairpins. But they got to the village by the border and realised that 3 members of the party had actually left their passports in Tehran. So, so I had to the old things of checking passports, money, and still valid. And 3 had to go back to Tehran and catch them up later, but because it took them 4 days to get across the border, that wasn't a problem. So yes, they arrived at the border. There had been a coup d'état the 13th to the 18th. They arrived on the 21st. There had been a military coup. The coup itself was bloodless, but there had been 250, 300 killed in related activity across the country. So not the ideal time to cross. It did take them, I think, 4 days to cross. Arrived at the border to find it closed. Another day spent at the border together with other busloads. Occasional moments of excitement when Iraqi uniformed officials appeared. Another day spent at the border with no success. Arrived at 8 a.m. Open. Iran side processed the passports. Let us go to Iraqi side, although they thought the border was still closed. Iraq side surprised to see us, but proceeded with passports. Managed to get through in 4 hours, and then that's when actually things got a little bit more tricky. But as you can see from the photograph of the party, I think that's Pat here in the middle, and you can see they've got armed guards on the bus for this part of the journey, and another local bus, similarly with armed guards. So yeah, this is Iraq. We're now in Iraq. Convoy of bus and American motorcyclists continued towards Baghdad. Lots of police checks, armored cars, tanks. Stopped several miles away from Baghdad. After much messing around, told we couldn't go on. It was now dark, curfew in place, and eventually the police decided to put us up in the city hall. Very comfortable was the city hall, which was good. But really, there wasn't much sightseeing in Iran, and from the diary, it looks as if they pretty much passed straight through. Arrived in Baghdad, weren't allowed off the bus. Spent 3 hours faffing around, and then pretty much escorted out of the country without seeing it, which I'm sure was a shame, and the fact that it used up quite a lot of time that unfortunately allowed that some of the latter part of the journey across Europe was somewhat rushed. So on from Iraq to Jordan, followed the pipeline to Aqaba, I think it was one of the longest days. I don't think they got in until 9 o'clock in the evening. But one of the benefits of getting there was to get to Petra and the fairly classic view of the gorge. They climbed up the top of one of the hills where the sacrificial place was, back to the Roman temple being reconstructed, and some interesting archaeological finds, and had a ride on a donkey, which is all pictured here. I think by far the stars of the donkey picture are the two boys on the left-hand side, who are great to see them enjoying their photograph being taken. And then this is the sacrificial site just on the left, overlooking the valley and the Roman temple. Once again, not somewhere that I've been to, so I couldn't tell you what it's like now, but that is what it looked like in 60 years ago. So from Jordan, and this is still Jordan then. The Six-Day War was 4 years away when they occupied the West Bank. So they spent some time in Bethlehem and Jerusalem, seeing the sights. They walked along the border between Jordan and Israel, and I think there was a certain amount of tension on that border, which was reflected in some of Pat's notes, which probably not surprising given we're that close to the Six-Day War. Probably less convinced about the sites here than Joash, which they thought was stunning. Not somewhere that I've been again, but a real combination of Neolithic, Roman, Greek, and later sites. Amphitheatre, theatre, temples, all in excellent condition, and I think very much what you can see from the slides, and the amphitheatre on the right, the Temple of Artemis on the top with some locals, and the Column Street on the left. But yeah, very much looks pretty stunning. So probably coming to the last couple of slides, which once again I think a nice slide. They travelled across Syria. These pictures were between Aleppo and the border, and you've got a group of locals in colourful costumes. Many men wearing Arab headdresses, boys wearing long tunic-type garments, women often in Western dress with black veils over their face, but a nice, I think, capture there. And then desert for much of the way, more cultivated and undulating as you get nearer Aleppo, and some interesting cone-shaped mud huts in the villages, which is what you see in the slide. And this is the final slide. They travelled into Turkey, and they did spend some time in Istanbul, but Bob was not well. The proverbial upset stomach, up 20 times in the night, which was obviously a little bit disappointing. And interestingly, they did purchased some slides of St. Sophia and the Blue Mosque, which were obviously not Kodachrome because they pretty much all color had faded, which is a shame. But the couple of interesting pictures here of the caves at Urgub, and I think quite a interesting description of the last slide. Pass through the village of Lowry, like men in black overcoats and walking on the snowy pavement, and that was pretty much the end of the photographs. As I said, I suspect the end of the trip was pretty rushed. They progressed pretty rapidly through Turkey, Greece, Yugoslavia, Italy, and France. The dynamo in the bus broke. There was no heating. They managed to pick up colds, and then some of the sort of classic names that you said. They stayed abroad in Venice. They couldn't get any accommodation in Genoa, Avignon, Avenel, Paris, Dunkirk, Dover, and then back in London. But as I say, I think they lost 4 or 5 days crossing the border, which meant that that end of the trip was pretty rushed. And it sounds as if it was pretty drizzly, and they both had colds, so not necessarily the stunning end to the holiday. But there we go. So I hope you all enjoyed. I very much enjoyed the first slideshow when Bob presented this, and I hope you did it as well. So any questions, any observations? Anyone traveled to any of these locations and I want to comment as to how they look now and how they differ?
I would say Jerash looks exactly the same as it did then. It hasn't really changed at all. Yeah, I've been there a few times, so yeah, that hasn't changed at all.
Well, that's good to hear, because it does look pretty impressive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is impressive. Yeah.
Have you thought of trying to recreate, go into some of these places and recreate the shot as with a camera? I
think I would love to, but yeah, some of the places you obviously can't see, but yeah, I should do that. But it would be probably a 10-year a 10-year job.
When you said it was the first time they'd flown, how they obviously got a ship? They were from here. They were from the UK and sailed to Montreal, presumably. Then
yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They weren't Canadian. They were British.
No, British.
They actually got married. They got married and then went off on the boat to Montreal.
Oh wow!
22.
Wow, that was something then, wasn't it? In those days, I mean, it was something these days, but in those days, at that age,
yep,
it's amazing.
Straight from uni.
Yeah, they both worked for a year, and then they got married, and and decided to go off to work in Montreal. They both got jobs in Montreal.
And how old were you, Anna, when you first learnt about these exploits of your parents? And what did you think about it when you did discover?
Well, some of the pictures were actually on our dining room wall for as long as I can remember. Ones like the Golden Temple and the mosque in Iran. And so, yes, there was this little collection. So we knew they'd done that, but it's only as you get older that you realise, I mean, I didn't do anything adventurous like that in my 20s, or indeed really since. So, yes, it's...
They probably discouraged you, did they?
No. I just never thought to. And, it's... no, it's amazing, as you know, as you realise, and various stories come out, and you start to think, oh, well, we're going to Japan. Shall we see what Mum wrote in her diary for when they were in Japan? And so, yeah, you look back at it.
Yeah.
But always quite interesting because similarly, you know, my parents travelled, and actually Anna's parents and my parents were both in Libya for a stage not long after this. But yes, Mum would always get worried about me travelling, you know, for Paris or something, and I did have to remind them every so often. You did go to Barbados as a youngster, and you did go to various other places that, and you did go down the west coast of America into some of the Ecuador or somewhere along there where there was a coup and they had to be flown out in the last plane with the ambassador, yes, but they still worried about us.
You said it was the first time he'd used that camera, but was it the first time he'd really taken photographs? Did he have any experience with?
Oh, I think he did. My grandfather did take photos and had a dark room, and so I'm not quite sure when Dad really started. I know when they were back in Sheffield, he then did use the dark room himself and developed his own photos. There are an awful lot of me as a baby that he was cropping and and developing those himself. But I think this was just an opportunity to have this camera and take photos on the journey. I don't know that he'd been taking a lot before that.
It may also have been a first colour camera.
I should think so, yes. I mean, the later photos are black and white.
Yeah.
That he was developing himself.
Yeah, I think that might be what it is, that it was the first time he'd used a slide camera.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and he certainly hadn't used that camera before because it was, they did the swap just before they started traveling.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose with such a big trip coming up, you'd want to document it, wouldn't you? I mean, nowadays just do it on our iPhones, but then it was really something you definitely want to get some photos of that, however you get them, really. So, and thank goodness he did, and thank goodness he took them on. You say Kodachrome because it's obviously lasted, whereas a lot of stuff would have faded into nothing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the slides had color casts, and I've worked quite hard, and I haven't got them all right by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, there is color there to work with, which is pretty impressive, really.
Wow. It's fantastic. No, it's really good. Thanks very much.
Sarah,
do you know if they use local Kodak labs to process these slides?
I think they did, because they did get them processed on their travels. So I think that's right. But one of the things that did spend quite a lot of time on was a lot of the slides aren't particularly clean, so they do look as if they've been halfway around the world, so yeah. But yeah, that must have been quite tricky to do as well.
Because Kodachrome is quite a difficult process, isn't it? It's not something it's quite an involved thing rather than Ektachrome, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. The Kodachrome is something like a 21-stage process.
Wow.
Because you develop it's no longer available, but you used to process the slide as you would with Ektachrome to get the black and white. And then not only the color couplers were introduced at the processing stage, so you'd had to put the color in to each of the various color layers.
Wow.
Whereas on Ektachrome, the color couplers were already in the material, were already in the emulsion.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the easiest thing was to stick all your slides in the post to Kodak and let them do it.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. I mean, but at that time, Kodachrome was there, and that was, I suspect, de rigueur. I never I didn't come across it until when I started using 35mm.
I know in the 70s when I did my India trip first, I think I took about 30 rolls. I was away for 3 months or so, and I took about 30 rolls of film with me. And every time somebody I met was coming back to the UK, I gave them the envelopes addressed to my mum. So they went to Kodak and they went to my mum, and she and my brother saw all the places I'd been to before I did. But it was a good way of keeping them informed. I really took risks, I think, giving them to people to post for me, because I don't know that I'd do that now quite so easily.
Well,
But then I
wouldn't take
didn't
a
think
package
twice
to
about
somebody
it.
else. Yeah.
I've been doing some decluttering lately, and
Oh,
in that,
Richard, that's dangerous.
I know. Don't get me started. But I've been looking through photographs I took when we're talking really the very early 60s and onwards, and it's surprising actually what was around then. A lot of it was Ektachrome. I did have Kodak, but I didn't like Kodachrome, but I didn't really like the color of it. Ektachrome seemed more natural, but there were other brands like Perutz was one, which was really good on color. And there was another one I used called Anscochrome, which in those days in color did 1000 ASA.
Right.
Wow.
And it's amazing how well the color has lasted in all of those. Much better than a lot of the black and white negatives.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was so much to know about this. I might have to talk to Pat about and just work out exactly how they did get them developed and get them home, because it sounds slightly more complicated than today.
Yeah.
The big problem today is flying and scanners damaging the film. Apparently the new generation are okay.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of the old generation around, and so I personally now would think twice about taking film abroad, because they've got to go through the security system.
Yeah.
Do you remember those bags you could get, like a lead bag to wrap them in?
Yeah.
To kind of prevent.
Yeah, I'm told that. Funny enough, I was talking to someone about this just a week or so ago, and she was saying that actually they're not much use, because when they put them in the machine, it just comes up as a black space, and it looks like you're trying to hide something. So they take them out and scan them anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard it was just a question. I just turned the sensitivity right up, so it really got blasted with X-rays.
Yeah.
Back to film stock, Lachlan, it would be really interesting to see one or two of these slides where you haven't done the color correction.
Yes, that's true.
I've inherited several thousand slides starting in the late 50s and going through to the 70s. But unfortunately, the majority of them are AGFA, and they have not done at all well with the color cast. In fact, green appears to have disappeared completely from the majority of them. And I have to say, I'm finding it very difficult to bring very much back on a lot of them. In fact, I'm converting some of them to black and white just so I can see what's on them. So I'm really impressed with the color balance you've shown. I know you said you found it quite hard work, but I, for one, would be very interested to hear more about that side of things.
Okay. Well, I will. Yeah, next time we catch up, because I can show you some of the slides without, as scanned, if I can find them. What came out the scanner, and what was the final version. But I think the scanner. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago now, and I tried to connect it to my new Mac with the new operating system, and then it didn't seem to be very compatible, unfortunately, which is irritating.
Is it something that AI could do? Knowing that AI would know what it's looking at. I wonder if AI could put color back into things.
That's an interesting thought.
Good question.
It's a very interesting point. I've been experimenting with AI color correction for negatives and had a surprising amount of success, even just at a trivial level. But I've yet to find anything that appears to work on positives. So I'd be very interested to hear of other people's thoughts on this, because obviously we can play with the curves in Lightroom, but if you've got a few thousand and they're all slightly different, it's quite a painful process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds as though you've got to look for the good ones and concentrate on those, perhaps.
I wonder if there's a share in chat coming out of that, David, that we could get Sarah and Lachlan both to continue that conversation.
Yeah, because it's pertinent to all of us. We've all got, to various degrees, old slides and negative, haven't we? Really, stored away, probably not in mine, in not ideal conditions and what have you. Yeah.
I've been using laser soft imaging software with a flat-bed scanner, and that's been quite good at doing things like getting color back. It's quite sophisticated in its own way. It might even be at least partially AI as well.
So there's another contributor. I think you've got a meeting.
Well, I'm not sure I can replicate what I did before, so I'll have to think about that one.
Well, on a travel note, Lachlan, did they have a tour leader when they were going, from India up through back to Europe? Was there somebody in charge, essentially?
Yeah, so they went with Penn overland, and they orchestrated the trip. I'm not quite sure. Anna, do you know the extent of a leader? Or...
I don't. I'm afraid. I think it was there was a bus that was going. They were all on the bus, and I think the accommodation was arranged in advance. But except that from the diary, it almost sounds as if sometimes it wasn't. So I don't know, to be honest, how much was organised.
There's definitely an entrance for Genoa that says we were meant to stay in Genoa, but there wasn't any accommodation, so we moved on.
That would have been a problem of the delays along the way, perhaps.
Yeah.
Being devil's advocate,
Yes.
There was a program on television a couple of weeks ago called The Golden Age of Coach Travel. And within that, there was quite a bit about these buses, or these coaches, I should say, beg their pardon. One of the drivers who bought his, and having got it, and apparently National Express killed it off a lot of the independent operators. His solution was to start going on trips like the one you've been describing. And it was quite interesting listening to his perspective on it as the driver, and the things he had to cope with and how he coped, and the passengers and how they lived and so on.
Do you know where that was? Was it is it on iPlayer? Is it?
It's either it's probably on the U player.
Okay.
I think that's where it was. But it's
see if I can find
definitely there. There was a series, The Golden Age Coach Travel.
I shall make a note. Thank you.
I seem to remember the name Penn Travel for some reason. I'm familiar with it, and I just Googled it, and it said that in the early days it was 55 days from Dover to Ceylon, and it was £78 for 55 days. So, I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So that will be what they were doing in reverse, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
And there's a Facebook site as well of people that travelled trying to reconnect, and I didn't spend too much time looking at that, but there definitely were people that were reconnecting who'd been on these journeys.
It's my big travel regret to be not quite old enough to have done the hippie trail from London to Afghanistan. I just wish I would have been old enough to have done that. It sounds so fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. A lot of these journeys were ones that I made, but always 10 years later. And it's fascinating. We went to Bangkok in the mid-70s. I remember going to the west of the United States, Sri Lanka, a lot of the places, and it's just interesting looking back and seeing them as well, in my mind, comparing them as I'm looking at them here, and as I remember them, and it's as though all the developments happened since I went there, because I could see a lot of similarity between what I saw and what we're seeing.
Yeah,
it's like everything. And the one in Las Vegas was interesting because that was 60s, but I think it only started off in the late 40s anyway, so it is very, very small and very, very young. It's all the development has been in the comparatively recent years.
Yeah, I did look up Las Vegas, and yeah, as you say, it was fairly young in its life then.
The image that you showed in Bangkok of what I suspect was the Chinatown area, with the street and the guy walking over what was looking a bit like a canal. I suspect that if you went there today, you wouldn't find it that much different. And I think there are various parts of cities that don't change that much.
Okay.
I agree. I think it's looking over to the river to the Temple of Dawn, isn't it?
Yes,
that
it is.
one in the background. And there's gaps in those houses where you can still see that, I think. It'd be interesting to try and find that again. I think it's near the palace, isn't it? It's somewhere along there, that front by the river, I seem to remember.
Well, the last time I went to Bangkok, that was specifically what I set out to do, was the Chinatown walk, just because I'd been several times, I'd never done it.
Right.
And I don't know, but it seemed to me that it's lost a lot of its character. It had become a lot more, should we say, of a business district with warehouses and I don't mean the huge Amazon type ones. I mean places where goods are stored and so on a much smaller scale. But it wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there are just cameos that you catch every now and again.
Yeah.
That say to you, that's not changed.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. I'll have to have a journey, because I haven't, apart from business, I haven't been to Bangkok, so or Thailand at all. So okay.
Getting back to the golden age of coach travel, there's apparently a BBC production in 2011, Time Shift Series 10.
Yes, that's it.
10:6. So presumably one or the others, if you said it's in you, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, you is owned by BBC Productions. It's a BBC company.
On iPlayer then, presumably, as well.
But there's a few of, I think there must be a few of them, and it's just going through there. But
that's the one. It was Time Shift, I remember.
See if we can find it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll come up very quickly. However, we are now approaching 9 o'clock.
Well, can we do a couple of things? Can we first of all thank Lachlan for a super presentation? I think it's a real challenge for some of us to try and find images that we've taken more recently of some of those places and see if we can update. David's got Jerash, I've got Jerash, I've got Jerusalem, we've got various things. I'm sure if we went round the screen, everybody would come up with something. And I think that would be quite a fun thing to do.
That would be really good.
Yeah.
I certainly have got some of Jordan.
I've got Iran,
Wow.
And Syria.
That would be stunning if we could do something along those lines.
Yeah, should we try and do that?
Let's see what we can do. Yeah.
I've gone the other way. Behind me is one I took of Sedona in Arizona in the mid-70s.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
the main street was red dirt, and it
Wow.
wasn't tarmacked. You could tell from the cars of the period.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's just like any other American city, really.
Would you
Oh.
all mind if I used your email addresses and sent you Lachlan's map slide?
Yeah.
And then we'll give you a deadline. And it'll be a reasonable deadline because we're all busy and
Traveling.
our brain's not usually where it is at the moment, or not where it is at the moment usually. But maybe we could work something out so that we see what images we can get of some of these places and just get other people's stories of those places. Would you be up for that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you're a travel group member or not. This is for everybody. Yeah. And if you're okay, I'll use your email addresses and do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
Yeah, and feel free to share the PDF of the presentation. You know, you don't.
Well, I will get it edited and get it onto YouTube, but I'll do that one side of the map so that people can have it and work from there. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, that's great.
I think, Kathy, if you could just put an outline when you do email us of what you would like, then
Yes.
there's a better chance of us all working down the same route, so to speak.
Would anybody else like to take over the organisation of that? Because I'm about to undergo some radiation therapy, which is going to take 5 weeks or so, and I may not. I mean, I would get it out to you, but I might not do it as well as somebody else would. So if there's somebody else who'd like to do it, I'd be very happy.
Well, it depends on your time zone, Kath, on your timeline. What are we talking timeline?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that yet.
I'm quite happy to do it.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. So do you mind if I send Lachlan your email addresses?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the GDPR thing. That's why I'm asking, just so that we know that you don't mind. Okay, I'll do that, and Lachlan and David can get together and sort out timescales and things maybe, and just take it forward. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Much better. Good.
Kath, just to thinking, well, would that be something we could do in October?
It may well be something that would be lovely to follow up in October, and Lachlan's booked already, so he's going to be there.
Yeah.
October 3rd and 4th, we have a weekend in Leamington Spa. It's billed as the travel group weekend. It is not only open to the travel group, it's open to everybody. We've got a couple of really good speakers, a guy called Will Gray, who has just produced a book called Photography Weekends Britain, and also Nori Jemal, who is an award-winning travel photographer, who wrote the Travel Photographer's Way, which Bratt published. And we've got Victoria Humphreys and Anthony Lavera from the RPS. We'd love to have a full house. We haven't got it yet. We'd love to have a full house. Details are on the website. I'm happy to send, well, I sent you a link, I think. When I sent the reminder yesterday, I put a link to the booking page. It would be lovely to have more people there than we've got at the moment. So do consider it.